And
Okay.
then, yeah.
I got it. All right, cool. So we're just sort of figuring this out. All right. Well,
Well, first, let's ask that question is what would make this powerful? And like I said, previous to getting on here, it was diving into personal authenticity
yeah,
and purpose.
yeah.
And so, where was it the first time that you found your purpose?
Is it? So I was feeling into how I might talk about purpose, leading up to this moment, and I started to distinguish like different levels of purpose.
Mm,
I think, in a sense, everyone has a purpose. Just not everyone has a purpose that's perhaps conscious, and not everybody has a purpose that is going to benefit them or anyone else. And I feel like I've gone through all of those stages, right? So, and then there's another kind of purpose, I'll talk about. But initially, my purpose was to survive. I can remember having kind of a traumatic childhood and not feeling very supported or, wanted or heard or that kind of thing. And, to have a purpose, yeah, my purpose was to, have less pain and, get away from whoever and uh, kind of disappear into the background as much as I could. And then, and so an upgrade to that purpose was to be someone who was successful and hardworking. And, so I kind of transformed into a, really intense workaholic, which did not benefit me really. I accomplished some unusual things early in my life. Like I had a copier dealership when I was in my early 20s. Um, after like 2.5 or 3 years of experience in the copier business. Before that, no business experience whatsoever. And so that's an extraordinary achievement. However, it just about killed me, and like literally, and brought me no joy. Like I had the joy of victory. Like there were certain things I was doing really well, but the company was never successful. There were certain aspects that were successful, but so it was just this constant stress and anxiety and workaholicness and first one in and last one out and super, Mr. Super intense and focused all the time. And so that I had a purpose. Yeah, I sure did, man. Make money and be successful and close the deal and whatever. And then later on in my life, I encountered a new space. And, this was the first purpose I would consider transformational. And I started a leadership track with an organization and well, landmark education. And, I adopted it, really was intensely committed to a purpose called creating a world that works for everyone. And so that was purpose. Each one was a huge elevation from the previous one. And um, and so that purpose, inspired me greatly. And I really had no idea what a world that worked for everyone would look like, but I was leading transformational programs, and so I just focused on the person in front of me, and or the people in front of me, and my purpose was for them to let go of all the barriers that, as I assert that we all have within us, all these barriers to our full expression of and our full experience of perfection and our full power. I don't believe that most people need to add more to themselves to experience power and purpose and and um, wholeness. I believe actually it's the removal of barriers to the sort of perfection and the wholeness that's already within us. But so anyway, I was on purpose without any clear direction other than making myself as effective as possible at creating opportunities for people to kind of set themselves free, remove the barriers to their own, authentic power and so forth. And I did that for a really long time. It was very nourishing for a very long time. Turned out a downfall of that was very cerebral. Like We didn't really deal with emotions. We didn't really talk about love, except sort of in passing. And turns out, very much to my surprise, that my mind and the mind in general, the mind of great, even great people, is not the full answer. There's more to life and purpose and what's possible. And, there's having a world that works for everyone. I now am very clear within myself that will require something beyond what my mind is capable of imagining, strategizing, creating, and I would assert bigger than anybody's mind to create. One could look at the state of the world right now. This is 2024. One could look at the state of the world right now, and one could surmise that we're approaching the end of what can be accomplished by the mind. There's real evidence for the United States is very much on the decline and headed for a pretty hard crash, like within months or years. Um, and and it is a country run by the mind, run by egos, run by smart people who are telling other people what to do, and everybody's trying to get smarter and move up the food chain, and everybody's trying to accomplish and win. And it appears that there's an end point to that game, which is probably not going to be to everyone's liking. So this is how it looks to me. And so as I observed that the way I was interacting with purpose, um, in my previous iteration of leadership, it was really part of what's happening now. In a sense, it may be a high part of it, like we were actually committed to having a world that works for everyone. I'm not sure that everyone is. In fact, I'm certain that not everyone is. But but uh, but that was not the full story, because it was limited by what my mind and other people's mind could imagine and perceive. And it now occurs to me is what's needed in the world is far beyond what a single mind or a collective of minds can imagine or create or get to work. So that brings us to the purpose that I'm currently experiencing, which is um, heaven on earth. One might ask oneself, one might ask me, well, gee, Kirk, what do you mean by that? That would be a stumper.
Yes. What do
But
you mean by that, Kurt?
yeah, excellent. Thank you. Sarah, I can tell we're going to get along.
We're on a
So,
good one.
what I mean by that, and even answering the question gives me a little bit of pause because what I meant by that 6 months ago is different than what I mean by now. It's like as time goes on, I have an elevated perspective of what I mean by it, and so I am very certain at points in the future I will have a more and more elevated answer to the question. So currently, my answer to the question is um, accepting, realizing, creating, allowing, generating, imagining that everything I need is within me now. Like there's nothing I need from the outside world. Happiness is not going to come from outside. Happiness is going to come from whatever perspectives I engage the world with, whatever perspectives I engage myself with. You can put two people in the same situation and one will be miserable and one will be happy. So it's clear, or you can put yourself in the same situation one week, same situation the second week, and one day you'll be happy, one day you'll not be happy, right? So I think with just a little bit of reasoning and a little bit of observation, and a little bit of just kind of letting go of how you'd like it to be, I think we can pretty clearly rule out that happiness comes from the outside. It doesn't come from money. I've known plenty of wealthy people who are very unhappy. It doesn't come from being healthy. I've known plenty of healthy people who are unhappy. It doesn't come from having the perfect relationship. I've seen people who have like the perfect spouse, a perfect husband, a perfect family. They're just unhappy. I've seen people who are sick who are very happy. I've seen people who are broke who are very happy. So the evidence, I think, is I think the ruling is in. I think the evidence is sufficient to say that happiness is not an outside job; it's an inside job. So heaven on earth for me is is allowing myself to be the source of my own happiness. And I say allowing because I believe that I believe that people are naturally happy and they're taught to be miserable. And what I mean by that is sort of this thing I talk about of domestication. You know, like when we were born, you know, within a few minutes or so, or a few days or so, the domestication begins. You know, you get punished for behaving, and you get punished for misbehaving, and you get rewarded for behaving. And then as you grow up, you get punished for misbehaving and rewarded for behaving. And as you go into school, you get punished for misbehaving, and eventually you catch on that how you are is not okay. That
Yeah.
you're supposed to be some way that you're supposed to be the way that you're being when you're not getting punished, and you're supposed to not be the way that you're being when you're getting punished. And you people get punished by their family and their friends and their teachers and preachers and government and media, even more so now, government and media, they'll government will freeze your bank account, or they'll put you in jail if you call somebody who
Hmm.
looks and sounds like a man. You say yes, sir, and you can get put in jail in California, I believe now. And you know, like they're being yourself and being authentic and being transparent is not a good idea from a very practical perspective. You will be hurt, you will be attacked. You know, so I think we've all gotten the message, and we've all kind of created a mask we can put on. You know, that mask you put on when you turn around the block and you meet somebody that you're surprised to meet. You go hi, like you're having the worst day ever. And you meet somebody, you go, hey, how you doing? They go, how you doing? I go, fine. You know, like we have this mask that we put up. You know, and that was necessary. That was intended. That was necessary in the face of the domestication. We
Hmm.
all learn to be this way and not that way. And you know, people don't even know who they are anymore. People don't know what they want anymore. You know, I've coached tens of thousands of people, you know, led and coached tens of thousands of people in the last 30 years. And I say jokingly, but it's absolutely 100% accurate, and it feels kind of humorous after you observed it for a while. But there's one question that literally stumps everybody, stumps the smartest, the hardest, the quickest, the most bold, the most courageous, and stops people in their tracks. The question is very simple. The question is, what do you want? And then people will roar at me about what they don't want. Like, nope, 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 nope. What do you want? And the reason that question is so difficult to answer is because it's literally been beaten out of us. It's been domesticated out of us, you know? So now my purpose is to bring heaven on earth, which is to say, find heaven within me and take ground, find peace in me and take ground, find love in me and take ground. What do you mean by take ground? Well, I mean, now that I've have some capacity to find heaven within myself in my coaching and my leading, I'm now creating opportunities for people to find everything they need within them now. And so heaven on earth is literally individually heaven here on earth, and then go find a relationship, and then go to Disneyland, and then build a business, or then, you know, create a village in Costa Rica where people can come and find peace and harmony, find love, you know. But don't do the thing to find happiness and do the thing from happiness, you know. So my purpose now is to create heaven on earth, create opportunities for people to literally set themselves free, and to train other people to do the same.
Hmm.
So that's my that's my that's my personal journey and my answer to I don't remember the question, but whatever the question was, that's my answer. My personal journey.
Well, there's a big one that just keeps popping up, is to the next question after all that beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Kirk, for all that. I see a bit more into your world now and the depth of your purpose, and it's just really beautifully highlighted. So thank you for that. And the other one is, how do you maintain that purpose in a world that keeps punching you in the face and keeps coming at you? How do you sustain that? How do you maintain it when everything in life is meant to try to kind of pull you down? How do you stabilize that inside of yourself?
Um, well, recently Um, Recently I've discovered the value of a clean fish tank. In my past, mostly I've lived in dirty fish tanks. So what I mean, the analogy is, if you take a clean fish and throw them in a dirty fish tank, they will get sick and die. You take that same fish and kind of wash them off a little bit, and throw them in a clean fish tank, and lo and behold, wow, if fish is doing pretty good, that's a miracle. Well, maybe it's a miracle. Maybe we just stop beating them down to death. And he was able to thrive and drink clean water and eat clean food and whatever does fish do, do that with freedom and so forth. I have lived most of my life in a dirty fish tank, meaning people around me didn't actually get, well, I don't want to sound completely noble about it. Let me finish my thought and then let me retract a little bit. So people around me didn't really get what I was up to, but what was important to me, what I was committed to. I've been on this path of developing myself to be a resource, to be a contribution for a minute, and often I'm related to as someone who is seeking reputation or personal gain or comfort or something like that. And I can get that. Many people who say the things that I say, that is what they're up to. And I certainly have not been flawless, so any, you know, I'm definitely a wildly imperfect vessel for what I'm up to. But that doesn't deter my dedication and commitment. So, but recently, with Earthworking University and my relationship with John and this journey that we're on together, I think it's been about 5 years now. I have found people. John specifically was the first one. I found someone who was walking in the same direction I was, or at least walking in the direction that I wanted to be walking on. When we met each other, I was in a low spot in my life, and you could make the case that I wasn't walking in that direction at that specific time, but I had been and I wanted to. So I was in a, I was in a dip, let's say, but but I saw where he was walking, and I saw that not only did I want to walk beside him, I saw that I could make a substantial contribution to what he was up to creating, and that's what I've been waiting for. I didn't know that's what I've been waiting for. When I saw it, I was like, "That's it." And so, to expand that out a little bit, um, it's important to be with people who are walking in the same direction you are. So, walking towards love, walking towards setting people free, walking towards contributing to humanity, walking in purpose. So walking towards, I guess what I mean by that is sharing the same commitment. So I have a commitment to people get to be free. People get to experience themselves as leaders. People get to experience themselves as the children of God, the infinite beings. You know, I'm committed that people get to experience themselves as capable of anything. And the only barrier between what people are experiencing and what they are meant for and what they're here for and living life purpose is just some misperceptions, some illusions, some beat downs, some pieces of us that aren't quite healed up and acknowledged. So we help people restore themselves to their natural state of power, infinite power. We you know and so I would not be able to maintain anything close to the consistency and the level of purpose that I live without being in a community where that's what we're all up to. I'm resolute in this assessment that I would not be able to. And so, I'm here in Costa Rica. We're creating villages based in love, um, and for the sole purpose of giving other people an opportunity to discover what I discovered, which is, oh my gosh, that's where I want, that's where I want to go. That's the direction I want to walk. I was like, well, come on, let's go do this. So, any semblance of ability to maintain being on purpose definitely is highly correlated to living in a community. And then secondly, I practice regularly being someone that around me, people can set themselves free. What I mean by that is I coach and I lead programs, and one of the programs I lead is listening and speaking from love. Another is the visionary program, which is a leadership program based on all the values and principles that I'm talking about. And so the constant practice, like I lead 2 times a week or more, and that's critical. I coach people every week, multiple times, and that's critical to practicing because I keep, I'll offer somebody something and I can see myself in it. So when I support someone else, I'm supporting myself. I get to hear myself say it one more time. Like, okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. This time I got it. This time I really got it. Or this time I got it more. Oh, I can see. Oh, now I see how I can apply it here. Oh my gosh, like that, right? So, for me, it's practice in a community that we're all interdependently up to the same thing, which is bring heaven on earth and listening, speaking, and acting from love.
Mm. Wow, there's so much packed in that. And the things that popped out, one is when you said restoring infinite power.
Yeah.
And when you face your own obstacles, how do you clear those that interfere with you?
Um, so I'm a pretty energetic person. I'm, sensitive and energetic. And, back in the day, I used to get pretty riled up about stuff. Back in the day, it was about 3 weeks ago. And that I'm sorry. Could you ask the question again? Let me just make sure.
Yeah, you said about we help and lead other people to restore their infinite power. And so being a leader and holding that space, how do you clear away those
Yeah,
obstacles that
yeah,
interfere with restoring your own power?
perfect. Thank you for bringing me back to that.
Yeah.
So, find a lie. So I work from a perspective that peace, love, and joy is my natural state.
Mm.
Having miracles happen around me is a natural state. Being in love, like not in the romantic or Hollywood sense, but living in a space of love, in a commitment that love is all there is, living in love is the natural state. Again, the reason it doesn't feel like that, well, sure doesn't feel like that. Well, I understand that. I have multiple experiences that don't feel like that. So I'm not saying everything like me, but what I am saying is wherever I am blocked, angry, frustrated, annoyed, impatient, when I'm not in the state of love, there's some lie that looks to me like the truth. Sometimes I imagine that as like, oh, there it is. And sometimes it takes me weeks to find it.
Mm.
But even if I can't find it, I'm still not believing the lie, right? Like, I know you're lying. I just can't prove it. It's like, I know I'm lying. I just can't prove it. So I don't need to prove it to know that I'm living in a lie. I know I'm living a lie if I'm all messed up about it. If I'm all talked out about something, there's a lie around here somewhere, right? So that in and of itself it was a huge state change for me personally. And then, finding the lie is like the next piece, like, oh, dag damn it. there, there it is. I got you, right? And then after the lie is the truth, and then, then it's like that may not be the end of the story. It may be a lie that's so deeply ingrained, it keeps coming in, coming back, and coming back. So that sometimes the end of the story, you find the lie, and you get it, and it's like done. And sometimes you find a lie, and you punch it, and it punches you back in the face, and you hit it harder, it hits you harder, and sometimes it's like that for a minute. A
Yeah.
minute meeting could be like I don't know, long time. So and then there's getting support from others. We lead programs here, we coach each other, and then I'll go to somebody who I feel like has transcended what I'm dealing with, or someone who can see what I can't see in me and assist me in finding a truthful perspective that actually allows me to set myself free. Sometimes that's easy, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that a lot at times. Um, there's been this thing that's happening around the village, and it's not one person, it's been multiple people here. And it's like, well, what am I doing all this for? And that's a question. Like, what am I doing all this for?
That's
So,
wicked.
yeah. And so my question is that how to inspire and help someone remember what they're doing this for, to spark and ignite and help them remember their purpose. What questions would I have to ask?
Well, I think before the question is like an understanding that inspiration, purpose, these are all things that are real, but they're real in the way that things in language are real. So I'm sitting at a table and I can knock on the table and it resists my knuckles and it makes a sound and it feels real. It's real in the way that objects are real. And if I leave my office and come back, it's still going to be here. Now that's very distinct from a conversation.
Mhm.
We could sit here and talk about inspiration, and we could be moved to tears, laughing and crying, and our whole lives are flashing in front of our faces, and oh my gosh, and like a whole new future is unfolding. We just can't even believe it. And we could both step out the door, something could happen. We could walk right back in 5 minutes. And that inspiration is gone. So I
Mm.
think it's important to appreciate the nature of purpose, inspiration, anything that exists in language. I think it's important to appreciate the nature of it, which is highly temporal, temporary in nature, and um, has no substance unto itself. So
Mm.
inspiration is a real-time phenomenon. You can't bank it. You can't get really inspired 20 years ago and walking around telling people, you had a breakthrough of inspiration, 20 years ago. Like it is completely irrelevant to the moment. What's relevant to the moment is, are you inspired or not?
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And so once you understand the nature of it, someone was inspired last week and you meet them this week and they're not inspired and you think something's wrong. No, nothing's wrong. They're just a human being. So if I see someone who was once inspired is now uninspired, which felt like the flavor of your question,
Mhm.
then what I'm interested in is creating an opportunity for them to break the malaise of the moment, like to, people. There's a woman here, Rose, who I went to the dining room and I saw Rose standing in the art room, just looking at the table full of stuff, just completely bewildered. Because this morning was orderly, and between this morning and the time she got there, I dumped a whole bunch of stuff on the table that it would make no sense, what items were there, what they were there for. They're not art items, and they're just like completely nonsensical unless you understand why they were put there, right? So I saw her, I was getting a glass of water, I saw her looking at it, I sort of chuckled, and I walked in like, you got any questions? She goes, yeah, what is all this stuff, right? So we laughed, talked about why I was there, laughed. And then I leave and she leaves. And then I heard her laughing again. I poked my head in and she goes, oh, I went into the art room for a tape measure and I forgot all about it. So that's how inspiration works. You go into the art room looking for a tape measure and you're surprised by what you see, and then you forget about the tape measure. You create
Mm.
inspiration within yourself, and you meet someone who's upset with you, and they verbally slap you around a little bit, and oh, wait, what happened to my inspiration? Somebody done took my inspiration from me. But really,
Mm.
what it is, you just forgot. You got distracted. You allow your attention to drift off of what is important to you to what maybe is less important to you. The trials and tribulations of the day, other people's upset, other people's crankiness, what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not supposed to, just all the things that keep coming at us in life. It's quite difficult to maintain a high state, and it's quite difficult to maintain anything that exists only in language if you're being bombarded by stuff. And one characteristic of the world these days are people are bombarded all the time by social media, advertising, propaganda, cranky people who are trying to get you to stop being this way and start being that way, and the other cranky people who are trying to get you to be the other way and stop being this way. And you go back and forth, and that's a never-ending cycle. And then every now and then you take a stand, and then you get hit harder, and then you stop taking a stand, and then and then if you feel like you need to take a stand, then you take a stand, and you get it's just like all this stuff. And you're like, oh, inspiration. Wait a minute. I remember that word.
Mm,
So I think it's a you know, how to assist people to get back to a state of inspiration is like, first of all, create a space where inspiration is possible, a safe space, a space where nothing is coming or going, like quiet, still, safe. And then if I can be present to my inspiration, that's actually pivotal because if I'm not inspired and I'm asking you to be inspired, then I'm just one more dude trying to tell you how to live your life, which by the way is not inspiring. Ask me how I know. So if I can find my inspiration
yeah.
and say, hey, I know you're not inspired. Like, yeah, you're sure not. Okay, cool. Beautiful, perfect. Do you remember what you once said yes to? You remember do you
Mm,
remember when you first said yes to this? Do you remember when you first said yes to what you're inspired by? Do you remember why you made the decision? Do you remember what you thought you'd get out of it? Do you remember the future that you were imagining when you said yes? I was
mm,
sitting there like, oh, wait a minute, I do. Yeah, wait, hold on, wait, I actually do remember that. And
wow.
yeah, people can re-inspire themselves and just give them a little bit of space and a little bit of leadership. It means like going first, like being inspired first, and just a little bit of support. Hey, take a look at this for a second, see if that has you be more inspired or less inspired. Well, no, that's more inspired. Okay, great. Well, take a look at this. Oh, I see. Okay, take a look at that. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay, great. Never mind. Take a look at this. And then lo and behold, because people are the source of their inspiration. I'm not the source of anyone's inspiration. From time to time, I create a space in which people can inspire or re-inspire themselves, but it's still totally not coming from me.
Mm, wow. That's amazing. For one, it's literally granting the space for someone else to reignite it with inside of themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And going first.
Yeah. Well, being the thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
that's,
Well said.
yeah. Wow. So, going back to what you said earlier is that you're always going to have an elevated answer to these questions. I did want to touch on that. I wrote it down and I'm like, that's still coming up for me. So, um, can you distinguish that a bit more and yeah,
Yeah.
distinguish that more?
Well, every time I've ever thought I've like learned something entirely or mastered something or became an expert at something or whatever, every time I thought that in some amount of time, usually not very long, some short amount of time usually, I discover something that alters my perspective of the whole thing. For example, I was talking about my leadership, right? So I was talking
Mhm.
about being really inspired and committed to a world that works for everyone, but I was working from my mind. And now that was undistinguished from me. I was not aware of that. I just thought I was, like if somebody had said that, I'd be like, well, what, what
What do you
else?
mean?
What
Yeah.
else would I be doing? Yeah, like
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
What does that
Uh,
mean?
so it wasn't until years later, in fact, decades later, that I have a conversation with somebody else. I'm like, oh, I see why that. I mean, it worked in the way that it worked, and many miracles were had, and so much freedom was created, and there's nothing to denigrate about what I was up to and who I was, the people I was up to it with, and the beautiful things that got created. But from my current perspective, it was actually definitely one-legged. So now I have two legs.
Mm,
I get to, uh, you know, when I say follow love, I'm literally talking about getting out of the way, getting my mind out of the way, and allowing inspiration, allowing love, allowing God, if you will, to speak to me. Now, I do not profess to be an expert in translating, right? I just feel what I feel. Sometimes I hear something. Mostly it's feeling and sort of a general direction. And I translate that as best I can. But those are my marching orders, not my mind. Oftentimes, what I receive is contradictory to what my mind would declare, create,
Mm.
direct. But that's okay. That's okay now. It wasn't okay it wasn't okay for a minute, but that's okay now. I've learned to expect that, right? So I still get to use my mind. I haven't, I'm not against my mind. I'm not against being smart. I'm not against being knowledgeable. I'm not against being quick, quick minded and, that kind of thing. But the difference is it's not running the show. It's not deciding for, it's not the decider anymore. Love is the decider. My mind now is the vehicle, is the how I get it done. So the love says, hey, go create a village in Costa Rica. I was
What?
like, what? Yeah. But then the mind gets to work. Okay, we're gonna do that. How are we gonna do it? Oh well, now my mind loves puzzles. Oh well, I guess we're gonna all get in the car and head west. Let's start there. Okay, good. Well, what do we do? I guess we're gonna head south. Like how we do? Went through Mexico and got as basically as far as we could go. But the borders were closed in Costa Rica. So what do we do now? I guess we just wait for a minute. And all of a sudden the borders opened. This was during the whole COVID fiasco. And then all of a sudden the borders opened up and then we fly to Costa Rica. And then, then we got really to a place to go. And we're in like large bed and breakfasts for a while. And it's miserable. It's awful. And like, okay, what do we do now? And then we just kind of keep taking the next step. But my mind now is in service of something bigger than myself, which brings us back to purpose, right? So
Mm.
my purpose is heading in a single direction towards love, towards the fulfillment of heaven on earth, and then my mind is used to solve problems that love presents for me. Okay, now we need this. Okay, well, okay, I don't have that. Okay, good. So now engage your mind and figure out how to do that. Okay, good. So now we got that, and then wait for the next order and that sort of thing. So again, I forgot the question you asked me, but I hope that was in the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah, that touched it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about uh, distinguishing why you're going to have an elevated answer to,
Oh yeah. So actually, thank you. I want to say a little more about that. So
yeah.
one thing I say a lot is there's no top to the mountain.
Mhm.
And I have thought I've reached the top of one mountain or the other many times in my life. I like to turn around and go, "Holy smokes! What's that? What's that big wall in front of my face? That's a mountain." Really? Oh, I thought we made it. Oh no, this is just the first mountain. There's this other one, by the way, is 10 times bigger than the first one. I hope you got really good at mountain climbing on the way up there. And so now that's been my experience. Now I expect it. Now when anybody tells me they're the best at something or they got something completely dialed in, I'm like, yeah, for now. Like I don't. Those comments are not welcome always. But internally I go, rock on, and one day I'm certain you will find a taller mountain.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like what's popping up for me right now, just in that share, is about the quality of your life is in the questions that you're asking yourself.
I love that. Yes.
And so if you keep on asking yourself questions that are elevating your experience or elevating your consciousness and the people around you, you're naturally you're also with you distinguished is that your heart's already in line. It's already got the promise, it's got the purpose, it's got the commitment, and I'm headed there. But there is no top of the mountain. But my mind's always going to be working because of the questions that I'm asking. So I love that. That just was a beautiful
Well,
distinguishment.
along those lines, there's a question that I've recently gained a great affinity for that I ask myself often, which which I think is right in line with what we're talking about. And the question is, love, what would you have me do here?
Mm,
And that question has literally transformed my life.
mm,
Because before that, I was always trying to figure things out. And I found that to be a very anxious, frustrating, ultimately debilitating practice. But when I ask love, what should I do now? What should I hear now? What should I say now? The results are miraculous and they often make no sense. And then, as importantly, I'm not anxious or second guessing or strategizing or forcing or manipulating or pushing or pulling, because I'm not I'm not operating under my own authority, as it will, as, you know, that probably could be interpreted a lot of different ways, but I'm not operating under the authority of my mind. I'm not dependent on how smart am I today, or how, how right am I today. Um, Now I have my energy on hearing ever more accurately and ever more fully a very, very, very quiet voice.
Mm. What is the feeling, like the space that you're in? What is the energy? What, like, you knowing that it's love inside? Because distinguishing those two differences, right, for people, is like people are constantly got a bunch of chatter going on inside of their head. So how do they distinguish? Like,
Yes, yeah, yes, they do. Uh, um, yes, they sure do. Um, well, so again, this is not something I consider myself a master of. So I'm going to answer your question humbly. But what I've noticed with it myself is, I like the way you asked the question. What does it feel like? What, how does it feel? Well, inside when I'm, what's the difference in the feeling? So I would talk about it. I would share about it in terms of, uh, uh, do I feel contractive or expansive? Do I feel more contractive when I contemplate this action, or do I feel more expansive when I contemplate that action? Do I experience being more lightful or more dark? You know, um, do I experience having my attention on myself or in service?
mm,
And so sort of this sometimes frustratingly nebulous process of like, I guess this feels more expanding. I just gotta, because I feel like I'm at the beginning of a journey here. I'm certain I'm just sort of at the beginning of the, climbing this mountain. But what I'm practicing is, just kind of, I guess it's like a divining rod. I don't know how that works exactly, but you see, we've even had people here in Costa Rica on our property with a divining rod trying to find water, and I'm not sure what they're feeling, but it sort of feels like the same thing that I'm doing. That looks like the way I feel, which is kind of like, that's more light, that's more expansive. Yes, that feels like service. Okay, go, let's go this way, and then I complete that, and then I turn on my mind and go, okay, buddy, how are we gonna do it? My mind loves that. My mind loves the puzzle. I'm like, oh, I'm back. Okay, great. Well, okay, let's do this. Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, great. Let it rip, brother. Let it rip. And then we're completing. Okay, break it down. Break it down. Talking to my mind. Okay, good. Quiet down. Quiet down. Let's quiet down for the next instructions. My mind says, "Well, I've got a suggestion. I'm sure you do, little brother. Just sit down right there. Very good." So it kind of feels like that to me.
wow. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I just
That was
it's like
hopefully
a beautiful reflection of myself, of what I do, you know?
yes, yes,
It's like, that's what you want to do? Really? That's what's going on? Wait, no,
yeah,
we've got all this going on. Wait, no, no, no. Sit down.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I totally feel you on that one. Um, hmm. So now it's not just the feelings of the inside. The question that I have next is the results from
Yeah.
when you're making these choices on the outside. What is being reflected to you?
Well, so on one hand, one distinct difference in my life now that has been in the past is I really have no attention on my own personal reputation or gain or wealth or anything like that. Like I'm not doing what I'm doing to increase my position in any particular way. Um, and so um, when I do have my attention on service at the highest level I can imagine it, service, service of people, of discovering freedom in themselves, happiness in themselves, embarking on how it looks to me, or how I say it to myself, is embarking on the life that they were meant for. They were built for, rather than the life that was domesticated into them. I'm pretty sure, you know, your soul's highest purpose isn't to be an accountant or a lawyer or something like that. Pretty, maybe I'm saying so with humility, but it doesn't occur that way to me. Those feel like occupations and purposes that were constructed in a dysfunctional world to support the dysfunctional world, right? So I think most of what I've done in my life, or a lot of what, most of what I've done in my life professionally, really made no difference about anything. It was just be about selling copiers. How profound is that? How purposeful is that? It was great for me as a young man finding success in a difficult environment, but that was about it. Um, so could you bring me back to the question? I keep losing myself.
Yeah, it was
I keep leading myself off the path.
it was about the feeling on the inside, but now having the
Oh,
results being
results. Yes,
reflected on
yes,
the
yes.
outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So ironically, I have more results in my life now than I've ever had in my life. So most of my life has been dedicated to my own personal results in a way. And then about 5 years ago, that really completed itself, and my commitment has been entirely of its service. And at the same time, I have more results in every category that I've ever had in my life. More abundance, more wealth, more abundance, more happiness, more health. I'm 61 years old. I'm completely vibrant and healthy and strong, and um, better relationships, um, a connection to God that I never imagined would be possible, experience of living fully on purpose and by design, like living the life that was meant for me, experience of leadership, which is, someone who has leaders around them, and we're all like boldly creating, fulfilling the purposes that we were meant for. And so I have more of that than I've ever had, and I have less attention on than I've ever had. So for me, that's a result, right? So that's a result that to me says, this is good. This is worth pursuing. So that's like the macro. On the micro, having conversations, or leading an event, or having a coaching conversation with someone, or working on a project. The way I kind of look at it is um, is after applying the remedy, taking the action, doing whatever, I imagine love told me, and whatever my mind told me how to do, and I look at the result. Okay, boom, there's a result. What I look for is there more light? Is there more freedom? Is there more love? Is there more clarity? Is there more power? Are there, more results than before? And if that's a yes, then I consider that a victory, a correct translation, and a correct application. Not to say the best translation or the best application. Again, I'm certain that I'm nowhere near the top of this mountain. I'm certain I can't even see the clouds that are blocking my view. Like I can't even see the clouds that are blocking my view from the top of the mountain. However, as I get results that exceed my expectations or exceed what my mind would have come up with by itself, I'm pretty I'm pretty dialed into the solutions that my mind comes up with, right? So when we do something different and the results are better than anticipated, that to me is a firm yes. And then I take the next step boldly in that direction until I get a result I don't like. So one thing I say a lot is use common sense and observe the fruit. And what I mean by that is give it your best shot. My best shot is following love and then engaging my mind to get her done, and then observe the results. So using common sense for me is following love and using my mind to get me there. And then observing the fruit is analyzing the results and declaring to myself, was that a win or a loss? Did I accomplish what I set out to, or did I not? And so so that's how I do it.
Wow. I'm really seeing the full recipe now, like of this conversation of living a life of purpose. It's one, you started this out with recognizing what purpose you actually had and where it took you, and then okay, what's my next one? What's my next one? So obviously having an elevated purpose, and once you found the top one, you're like, no matter what, and declared that for yourself, I'm going to get there. It was higher than you. It was higher than anything you could have ever even imagined of how to even get there. And there is no top to that mountain. But then also it's creating an environment and people that have what you want and where to go to. And that leads to your joy and your fulfillment. It already is a byproduct because you're following your heart, you're following love, and you're just doing what's coming next. And then that's rippling out to everyone. And wow, what a beautiful conversation. That's wow. Just thank you for that, Kirk.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
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 I see it a whole lot clearer now. And thank you for your authenticity and your love that just poured through this space. I'm just so grateful.
Super welcome.
So grateful. I feel like we completed this one.
Yeah,
Do
that
you
sounds perfect.
complete?
Let's complete that here.
All right. Well, thank
Let
you.
me let's turn off the record.